Hello, I'm Joyce Barrett, and I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Webinars are brought to you as a membership benefit of Heritage Ohio. Heritage Ohio's mission is to help people to save the places that matter, build community, live better. Today, we will have a presentation on wayfinding. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the question box at any time. Most issues with the webinar software will be solved if you close the program and restart it with the link that was sent to you. Tomorrow we will send out the recording, and if you would like a copy of the presentation, please let us know by email. Our presenters today are Lauren Falcone and Beth Barton with Pogemeyer Design Group. Lauren Falcone, AICP, is the vice president who's been with Pogemeyer Design Group for 24 years. During her tenure, Lauren has been providing clients with planning and economic development assistance. She has worked on numerous planning projects across Ohio and Michigan, specializing in comprehensive downtown revitalization, neighborhood recreation, economic development, and coastal access plans. Beth Barton, Community Branding Communication Specialist, has over 25 years of experience and has been with Pogemeyer for over 20 years. She recently completed 2 large-scale branding and wayfinding projects in Wadsworth and Parma Heights. So we're ready to start. Beth, take it away.
Great. Actually, it's going to be Lauren that's going to be starting, but thank you, Joyce. Thanks for the great intro, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to Heritage Ohio members. Basically, today we're going to talk about, the places you'll go if only you can find your way. Wayfinding is real popular right now, as probably most of you know. It's the process or activity of ascertaining one's position and planning and following a route. A spatial problem solving, knowing where you are in the environment, where your desired location is, and how to get there. It makes perfect sense, but many places don't do it. I guess, if you think of your community as a tourist and not as a local, it makes wayfinding much easier. A good example from this weekend, I was downtown at the activities for the All-Star game. If someone asked me where the convention center was, I would say it's north. I don't know what street it's on. I know how to get there, but I don't know exactly where it is. So I guess if you look at your community as a tourist, it's going to make it a lot easier for wayfinding. A good wayfinding plan asks 2 questions. Where are you and where are you going? And we're finding today that many of our clients complete the wayfinding plan as an offshoot of a branding campaign. And most times they do a branding campaign after a comprehensive plan or a downtown plan. Branding allows the community to take greater control and ownership over how it's perceived and how it expresses local opportunities and greater appeal. Communities don't want a dated logo. They don't want an uninspiring tagline. They want to make a really strong first impression on both their residents but also their visitors. They want to give people a reason to discover more about their community. And they can do that, expressing with a consistent use of logo, tagline, and brand elements that connect to an authentic and unique experience. A well-executed brand is consistently used in a logo and tagline, and we recommend to our clients that they use it on their website, any sort of social media, letterhead, business cards, even their vehicles in their community, any sort of wayfinding gateway signage, banners, even on their water. And there's so much competition today with our communities for dollars and tourists that some communities are relatively close geographically. So you think of Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati and all their suburbs. You need something that's going to make you stand out, something that will remember, a person will remember your community. I think a good example is up here closer to me, Lorain County, Wellington, and Main Street, Wellington. And you have Wellington's theme or logo tagline is Catch the Spirit, and then Main Street is Strengthening the Spirit of Wellington. So they're both very much related, and they're both based on the history of the Spirit of 76, which was painted in the village of Wellington. And I guess one of the big questions is who historically has done wayfinding well. I mean, we all know educational institutions, colleges do a great job, medical facilities, downtowns, major tourist locations, major metropolitan areas. The Cleveland Clinic main campus is probably a really good example in the Cleveland area. It's very easy to park your car, you know where to park, and then follow the colored lines to get you to which medical facility you'll be going to. I think we have some examples here, not so much our wayfinding signage, but examples around the country. And then the benefits of wayfinding. You're going to create a sense of place. You're going to have a seamless visitor experience. You're going to promote your brand equity, your story. Wayfinding can help both residents and visitors by providing vehicular, bikeway, walkable pedestrian signage systems. And again, this all ties into economic development. You can attract investment, commercial, industrial, residential. You want to leave a positive experience for the resident and the visitor. And again, if you have a good wayfinding system, you're going to save, time, money, and headaches for your visitors. I do really think wayfinding is very positive, and it definitely relates to planning and economic development, as I mentioned. The only real negative in my mind would be the cost. Obviously, it's an expensive proposition, and maybe annual maintenance of the wayfinding system if there's vandalism or any element damage. And then we'll move to the next slide about how do we get into wayfinding. We've created numerous logos, taglines for community planning, and then we've used that logo on wayfinding, kind of part of the community planning efforts. We're definitely seeing an increase in RFPs for branding, marketing, and wayfinding plans for communities. Michigan's been doing it for years, and actually the state of Michigan provides funding. And also, we actually have two due this week in Michigan. But over here near me in Cleveland, NOACA actually pays for planning of wayfinding signage and branding, and they also pay for actual signage as well. So that's a great benefit if you're in NOACA district. Also through Michigan, they have the Redevelopment Ready program, and that actually pays for the planning and the actual branding, marketing, and wayfinding as well. And here you can see a number of our samples that we've done over the years, and these are all Beth's creations. And that Stearns Crossing Business Park is here in Cuyahoga County and Olmsted Township, and then Luna Pier is up in Michigan. And that they actually liked the logo so much for the planning process that they put it on their water tower, so you can see it from 75 when you drive by. Basically, our strategy at Pogomeyer is we want to define the essence of the community through public input. We think any part of planning needs to have a lot of public input. We talk about touring the community on a site visit. We talk about working with steering committee members, public meetings, online surveys. We typically use SurveyMonkey. But basically, getting the public involved and looking at key themes, key words, a feeling when you visit the community during, business hours, during, after hours on the weekend, kind of like that feeling, the essence of the community. And then we would look at refreshing or creating a new logo and tagline, developing a wayfinding signage system. And in that case, we use GIS, and we also use our professional engineering services. And then we work towards designing wayfinding family of signs, which we'll go through in a little bit, and identify the actual location of the signage. We also work on developing brand and identity guidelines. So once you have all this planning done, you've got a document that you can use in your community. You can do it for marketing, you can do it for message and strategy, but also for, what you're going to put, your logo, where you're going to put it, if you're going to put it on your water tower, and that it helps the communities kind of implement their plan. And then we also talk about developing preliminary marketing materials. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth, and we're going to talk about two of our case studies, recent case studies, and kind of walk you through the process.
Hello, everyone. This is Beth Barton. And the first case study we will be talking about is the city of Wadsworth. We recently had a very exciting project with the city. They have about 23,000 residents. They are a Main Street community. We worked with a very vibrant 20-member city-appointed steering committee that included public, city staff, elected officials. And initially, we worked with them to start to outline the essence of Wadsworth. And then from that, we had a public forum and an online survey that was conducted to give residents and even some visitors of out of town the opportunity to give input for the essence of Wadsworth. There were close to 1,000 respondents from the online survey, and our public forum attendees were about 50. So we had very good attendance for both the online and public forum. Wadsworth is a progressive community, but they also have a very rich history. They enjoy numerous amenities, lots of parks. They have a rich commercial district, industrial district. They have a lot to offer residents and visitors alike. We have a 7-phased approach that we worked with them. The first being establishing a steering committee, reviewing existing data, meeting with the steering committee, which I just touched base on a little bit, the public input phase. And then from there, once we got consensus on the essence and of not just the city, but also the downtown, then I started to work on the development of potential look for them. So with that, I believe I showed them the first step was to the first step was to refresh their city logo and create a city tagline. Through the process of the refreshed city logo, it kind of came about that, well, first off, many residents and visitors were very confused with what the actual original logo was there on the top. Some people thought it was a flame, which it was supposed to indicate. Some people thought it was a flower. Other people thought it was a stylized W. So they wanted to make it more clear. And through the process of public input and creating the essence of Wadsworth, it became very apparent that the flame was the icon that they wanted to continue to promote throughout their community. And it made them unique. They were the former home of the Blue Tip Mash Factory, and they also still continue today to have a Blue Tip Festival each year to celebrate that rich history. So as you can see on this slide, these were some of the concepts that originally came about for the new or refreshed logo. The ones at the bottom here, you can see reflect a lot more of their original logo. As we went through the process, it became more apparent that they wanted a little bit more than, say, a refreshed city logo. So the ones at the top, through the process, were the top three that they had drilled down to. And then, as you can see, I'm going to go back here. This was the one on the bottom there, is the one that they actually chose. Then after that, we started working with Main Street Wadsworth, and throughout the public input process, we defined what the essence of the downtown was. They have a very historic downtown, and they wanted to celebrate that. They have numerous historic buildings that they wanted to feature, but it was very difficult to find. They had a gazebo as well, and then the clock tower as well. So even though looking at their downtown in a perspective view from the streetscape, these buildings aren't all right next to one another, but they thought it was very important to include these elements. So throughout the process, we chose to choose specific historic buildings and the gazebo, et cetera, to include in the new logo. These are some of the concepts that went along with the creation of the Main Street Wadsworth logo. Some of the themes that underlined, that were prominent during the process of discovery were hometown pride and community. And these are some of the taglines: wonderful Wadsworth, welcome home, it's all here, that were prominent for that. Another was the match and the warmth. They have lights that light up along the buildings and throughout the trees downtown at night. So that was something also that they wanted to capture. So a downtown with spark and where the past ignites our future were two of the top taglines for that. Then the historic aspect, excuse me, proud past, bright future, and vintage with a twist. Although we did end up coming up with a logo, at this time, I don't believe the downtown has actually chosen which tagline that they're going to be going with. So, but they have many options, and I think all of them are great, and they could definitely promote any or all in different marketing aspects. At the bottom of the page, you'll see these are some of the concepts that were presented in the initial discovery phase as far as the logo comps go. Wadsworth existing signage, you can see some very different materials, different looks, different fonts, different colors. So there was no real, I guess, consistency at all throughout the city and the downtown. So that was a huge reason that they wanted to promote a wayfinding plan into their city. Along with that, to help the guide visitors, residents alike, we and the steering committee conducted a tour and took inventory and also made decisions on where the best places would be to have signs, what type of signs those were, and the placement of those signs. So along with that, to catalog this, our GIS specialist put together this map. It's a little bit small on your screen, but basically the numbers and the colors of the signs then relate back to that specific sign and the content on each one of those signs. Throughout the process of the wayfinding concepts, we, I believe, submitted 4 different designs for them to initially look at. And then we had a working session together with the steering committee to try different options. And then ultimately, this is the final wayfinding plan that the city chose. As you can see, you have the archway. It softens the feel. It also plays off of the kind of organic nature of the flame icon for the logo. The family of signs included major gateway, minor gateway, primary vehicular directional signs, secondary vehicular directional signs, pedestrian, identification, and regulatory. After the completion of the logo for the city, the downtown, Main Street, and the wayfinding plans, we also put together brand guidelines for the city to use for not just the logo and the brand and how do you use the logo correctly and what fonts go along with it, but also for the wayfinding family. And it spells out the different types of signs that are here. And this is just an example of the cover and one of the inside pages. So this is a great guide for them to have to use as they move forth and they brand their community. Along with that, there's an economic development piece that they really wanted to showcase everything that Wadsworth has to offer, all their amenities, their parks, their rich history, their very vibrant downtown. So I worked with they actually had a graphic designer on staff, and her and I worked together to put this piece together. And then from there, they have it, they can update it as needed and continue to promote Wadsworth. The Main Street Wadsworth Wayfinding Plan, also very similar in style and the, I guess, exterior components of the signs themselves work very well with the city wayfinding plan. Of course, when you have these signs in the downtown, you're going to know that you are in the Main Street Wadsworth downtown. So these are distinct for that particular section of the city. And it would include also an information kiosk to really help visitors, residents, to find out where the best shopping and restaurants or city hall or library is. And then also we show here this is part of the brand guidelines as well, and it talks about the different fonts used and colors.
Right.
And I'm going to hand this back to Lauren for our next case study on Parma Heights.
Thank you, Beth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Parma Heights. It's in Cuyahoga County. They have stats of about 20,000 in population. We worked with a 13-member city-appointed steering committee, which included public, city staff, and elected officials. We used the public input from the recently completed comprehensive plan and corridor study. They had about 412 respondents. And their big problem was it's difficult to determine where Parma begins and Parma Heights begins, or Middleburg Heights begins and Parma Heights begins. So they kind of wanted to stand out among some of the Cleveland, Cuyahoga County suburbs. They had finished their comprehensive plan and corridor study, so the next step was a branding and wayfinding plan. And their goal was to enhance community gateways with distinct features and signage consistent with community-wide marketing and branding that was recommended in the commercial and economic development part of the plan. Basically, it's another community with so much to offer, but hard to find things and get from the highway to their commercial area. They also had a really unique Greenbrier Commons. It was a recreational area, gazebo, theater, metro parks, Tri-C. They had a lot of neat things to offer, but it was hard to figure out how to get there. So we helped Parma Heights with a 5-phased approach. This document that you see over in the top right-hand corner, that's basically a placemat we use with each planning committee. So we go through the 5 phases, information gathering, develop city branding concepts, multi-use graphics, develop wayfinding signage types and placement, design signage elements, and then celebrate. Go ahead and implement that plan. So basically, this would guide our process, and we had dates in there of meetings and public input, so everyone on the committee could follow exactly what we were doing. So basically, we talked a lot about the same thing that we talked about in Wadsworth, discovering the essence of Parma Heights. That was a word cloud there to the left of some of the responses. Of course, the bigger the words, the more responses we got with some of the surveys. You know, Greenbrier coming back over and over again, green, community, neighborhoods, friendly. Those words kept popping up in all the survey documents. And you can see there one of their mapping plans of their corridor commercial. They had a commercial corridor, they had a town center, and then they had a residential boulevard, 3 kind of components to their major gateway, which is Pro Road or 42 through their community. They had an existing logo that dated back, I think, to the 50s, and it's to the left, obviously, and it has a different kind of feeling than what we proposed based on the public input. You can see there's a Greenbrier vine that goes through the new logo, and the actual tagline agreed upon was "Community grows here." That kind of gave us the essence of Parma Heights, and it tied in with a lot of Greenbrier that was already in the city. There was a Greenbrier Street, there was a Greenbrier apartment building, there was a Greenbrier Plaza, and they had a theater as well. So they had a Greenbrier a lot in their community, and we thought we wanted to bring that out with the logo. So again, very different logos, and we felt the second one obviously represented the community a lot better. The next slide has their current signage. If we looked at the resident surveyed, 43, almost 44% said that signage and wayfinding in the community was listed as fair and poor. They wanted more poles, banners, planners. They wanted a better exit out of Greenbrier Commons. They wanted more visible, accessible parking. So you can see some of their signage options there that are currently there in the community. Back up a little bit on that slide, and you can see it. There you go. So there's 4 different, you can see welcome signs, a pedestal or monument signs, and then you can see the Greenbrier Commons sign, very different look, the park sign. So they wanted something that was more uniform. We came up with some different concepts for them, and I know it's a little bit small on your screen, but that we wanted to squeeze everything in. That was all the different options that they had. They ranged from more geometrical shapes to bringing in that Greenbrier vine. They were concerned a little bit on that, I guess it's option 3, top right. They were concerned with vandalism, that someone could break the vines off of that signage. So they, in the end, did not end up going with that. The pedestal sign you can see at the bottom, that was a neat option. And then we can see the Greenbrier going through on option 4. And they really wanted a gateway to a giant arch that would go over the Greenbrier Commons that would kind of pull traffic off of the main drag Pro Road into this Greenbrier Commons that had the theater, municipal facilities, tennis courts, library. So it was kind of a wow factor off of 42. We also looked at the final wayfinding family of signs. It came back to something very simple, classic, and that's what they wanted, vandal-proof almost. They were very detailed in this group that we worked with. We discussed the poles for probably an hour on the finial on the pole, and I think we finally came to some consensus that they wanted something very simple. So that was the final family of signs that we came out with. And you can see we have the primary gateway sign, the big G, the secondary gateway sign, which is the little g, the secondary gateway vehicular directional, GVD, and then the vehicular directional, which is VD. So those are all going to help people get from one point to another in the community. Parma Heights is home to the Big Creek Reservation, and that was a lot of traffic, tourist traffic. And part of Tri-C Western Campus is also in Parma Heights. So they have a lot of people going through the city on a daily basis. So they wanted to make sure they could get everyone to where they needed to go.
Right. And along with this, sorry to interject, but there were other signs as well, including identification signs, individual bikeway signs, parking signs, etc., included in the final plan.
Great. And I think the next slide has some more family of signs specifically for the Big Creek Reservation, which I mentioned was part of the Metro Park system. And you can see all the different types of signs here. And then we had one more group of signs that we focused on, and that was for the Greenbrier Commons. And again, it was funny talking to community members, and even, I grew up in Cuyahoga County. I never knew this was back here either. It's just kind of like a pocket of, neat stuff. The NEO soccer facility, they had the outdoor recreational facilities, the Cassidy Theater, the library, all in kind of tucked in off of 42 or Pro Road. And it was really hard to find unless you knew exactly where you were going. So hopefully with this addition of the arch across the entrance to the Greenbrier Commons, and then with all this different signage once you get in the Greenbrier Commons, people, both residents and visitors, will be able to find this kind of unique gem in a community. And that's a picture of the Greenbrier Commons archway. A lot of detail in that. And they, again, as I mentioned, draw people off of Pro Road. And they also already had a digital sign in front of their community building, so they were hoping to put something across the street too to get people into Greenbrier Commons, and then also advertise some of the information that was going on in the community. And we did a Beth did a Photoshop rendering of that digital sign in that location. And then this is also back in the Greenbrier Commons. Just some of you can see there's a pool there, and the Cassidy Theater is toward the back of that facility. So again, getting people into the facility, getting them around and to the activities or events back there. And I think the next slide is the wayfinding signage. So we put that, again, we mapped it, and we took, actually, the city of Parma Heights had a bus for us. So I think we took the senior bus and drove all around the community, probably a 2-hour tour to map the sign. So that was very helpful. And then we gave it to our GIS guy, and he coded everything. So as the city can get funding, they go ahead and pick what signs they want to put into from the plan. And then you can see on to the right, that's the aerial of Greenbrier Commons. So you can see the arch sign is in there, and then you've got a couple vehiculars and secondaries and identification signs. So you can see what signs are going where on that aerial map. And then the last technique we kind of use with this mapping is really neat. It's Esri Story Maps, and where we can put this link onto the city's website, or they can forward it, to the chamber, whomever, and they can kind of see what signs are going to go where. So again, kind of giving it more of an interactive digital instead of just looking at a flat map. And you can see the website there, link if you guys want to check it out later. And again, this was very helpful to kind of tell the story of wayfinding and what signs were going to go where. And this is the story map for the actual Greenbrier Commons. And you can see how they decided to do the vine going up instead of the cutout. Again, protecting the signage against vandalism, kind of thinking toward the future. If they're going to spend so much money on signage, they want to make sure that it's going to last. And then the next slide just has that same kind of brand identity guidelines, so they know, how they won't dilute their logo mark, and make sure that it comes out the same when they're looking at black and white versus color, and that everyone's using the same kind of, colors, backgrounds, and everything. So it does stay that strong logo. And then we did the same thing with the design signage elements and gave them all this information that they could take forward to utilize when they're doing signage in the city. And just as of note, the gas station on one of the main corners there on Pearl contacted the city and said, we'd love to put your new signage in our sign. So where their sign is on the corner, they were putting welcome to the city of Parma Heights, community grows here on their pedestal sign. So that's kind of nice advertising. So people are definitely buying into this, logo, tagline, and this color scheme for marketing the city of Parma Heights. I think that's all I have at Parma Heights.
Yep. And so this last slide is just another example. This is Swartz Creek. It's a community in Michigan. Worked with them on creating a new logo identity, but also along with that, we showed many different types of applications on the chosen logo could be used. Farmers market, their water tower, city vehicles, etc., banners. So these are different options for them. Just another example of how branding and wayfinding, really works together to positively reinforce your community and your brand. And I guess now we'll go ahead and take any questions you guys would have.
Okay, we have questions that are starting to come in.
Great.
Just a second. The first question is, what was PDG's contract value for each of the case studies shown?
good question. Do you have the exact numbers with you, Beth? I think one was 40. I think Wadsworth was 48,000. And
I believe so.
Parma Heights was closer to 50. Now, Parma Heights was completely funded by NOACA. They had a $50,000 grant to implement a wayfinding branding plan, and Wadsworth, I believe, paid for it on their own.
Right. I think the contract for Wadsworth started out around 46.5, and then I believe we had some extra work that we provided them, including a really detailed discovery phase for the downtown logo itself. So that added a little extra to that final budget.
Okay, do we have other questions? We'll wait just a moment so people can type those in. Okay, a few more have come in. What are the benefits and drawbacks of having a process for community engagement?
I think community engagement is key in any planning project. I mean, I think that if you expect your elected officials or your employees in a community to be the cheerleader or implement a plan, you have to make sure you've asked the public what they want. And I think that in 9 out of 10 planning projects, we do have that public input. I can tell you in the one that we didn't, it's very hard to implement that plan. So I think any sort of community engagement is good. I can tell you when we went to Wadsworth, our public forum was very well attended, and it was so well publicized that we had gas line protesters there. They knew we were going to have a good turnout. They knew we were going to have, they heard about us, and they came and protested the gas line because they knew they could get on TV and they had a captive audience. So I've never had that happen before, but part of me was like, well, if we did our job, you know, if we got the word out, we wanted public input. So kind of a funny story, but again, I don't think there's a bad thing to community engagement. Now, can it get negative? Sure, but I think you need to get everything out there before you implement something and expect people to be your cheerleader and kind of do your plan.
Right. You definitely need the resident aspect and that community buy-in to what you're trying to achieve. I think, you know, a lot of implementation would not happen without the actual residents being on board and wanting to be that cheerleader.
I mean, the only negative I would think is sometimes you get people that have an axe to grind, and you know, they kind of hijack the meeting, so that is kind of tough, like I mentioned with the gas protesters. But I think that at the end of the day, you have to take everyone's opinion in mind, and you have to, you know, do a good job of balancing everything.
Right, and then, you know, gaining consensus. Sometimes, you know, there's 2 themes or 3 themes. Say, for instance, in Wadsworth, you know, the historic aspect, the blue, the flame, and also just hometown feel. Those 3 were all very emerging themes. But throughout the process, even though it was tough and it wasn't everyone's favorite as to choose the flame, it actually, I think, as the process went on, you received that buy-in. You received that, yes, this is a good direction to go.
Okay, we have another question that's come in. If a community finds itself without funding or less funding than anticipated, do you have recommendations on phasing out the design and implementation process?
I think it's good to get, you know what you want and get that plan in place and get, you know, the logo and the tagline decided. But I think a lot of our communities struggle with paying for the signage just because it's very expensive. And, you know, it's great if you can get a grant, but a lot of communities can't get a grant for it. But I think that, you know, looking at your points of entry into your community, you know, Wadsworth, they have a really thriving commercial center, but not a lot of people knew how to get. If you were a visitor, it'd be hard to get to the downtown or challenging to get to the downtown. And they have a huge football program there, and people were going to the stadium, and to get them to the parks and get them to the downtown after the football game, that was kind of one of the goals too, I think. So I think that looking at points of entry and where you're trying to move people from here to there, you know, having a fresh set of eyes in your community saying, you know, I got off the expressway, I wasn't sure how to find the downtown, or I wasn't sure how to find the parking, public parking. those kind of things. And I think in Parma Heights, it was the Greenbrier. I mean, people that had lived there all their life did not know what was back there. So I think that was huge too. So that was one of their, obviously, their entrance areas in Parma Heights, because the borders blend in Cuyahoga County suburbs. And then I think the other issue there was the Greenbrier. So they were kind of going to prioritize those two locations for signage first.
Right. And I think each community, there's unique things that they want to point out and have, or that they have historic problems with as far as people finding their way.
Do you find that some cities have the capacity with their own sign shops to produce some of the signage?
I'll let Beth answer
I think
that.
so. Yes, I would say yes, to a certain degree. Obviously, a lot of the gateway type signs, they're a little more involved, a little more, the city services could certainly help as well with the actual execution of the foundation and whatnot. But as far as the construction of a huge sign like that, that's probably something that you'd want to hire a professional sign company for. But a lot of the identification signs, the banners, the even directional signs could certainly be executed if you had the proper means in that community. As well as another thing, a lot of the communities that we've worked with in the past, one of the big things is they want to be sure that if something changes, that they want to be able to update that sign and not have to spend thousands of dollars on a brand new sign. So, reflective vinyl material, choosing your materials is huge as far as looking at the long term. You want these signs to last. You need them to be durable. You also need to be able to update and revise them as needed.
And I think too, in Parma
Heights,
services.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think in Parma Heights they could make their own street signs, and they were talking about updating. They have very nice, larger street signs, not the typical small ones we're used to. But they talked about having their in-house people put ads or somehow get the vine onto the new street signs. So I think something like that. Yeah, if you have the capability, definitely use it.
Okay, does Pogemeyer have communities write grants to cover the costs of this process, or does the community already need to know how to do that themselves? Did I read that right? Does Pogemeyer help communities write the grants?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Or if the community has the ability to do it, they can do it as well. And the grant that we've run into now is this NOACA. It's Transportation. I'm going to say it wrong. TLCI, Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative, and they actually fund both planning, so $50,000 grant for planning for wayfinding, branding, signage, and then they also fund implementation. And I think it was it $200 a sign? Don't quote me. If you look it up on their website, on NOACA's website, if you're a Cuyahoga County community, some of the other MPOs also offer funding, so I think that's a good source. But yeah, the grant application I don't believe is too challenging. So if you could do it in-house, sure, or we can help you as well. We have a grant writing department at Pogemeyer.
We've helped numerous communities with grants of all sorts of projects to get that implementation process moving.
Will somebody asked for a clarification on the acronym for NOACA?
Oh, North Ohio Area Coordinating Agency. I think it's Northeast Ohio Area Coordinating Agency, sorry. And that would be the Cleveland area. I think Lake County is in there. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but there are numerous counties, Medina County, included in this NOACA area.
And the TLC is the transportation.
Transportation Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative. Sorry about that. I speak in acronyms. And we can send those links to people too if they're in the NOACA.
For Grafton, you did the TLCI plan as well, Lauren. And was that funded by a grant?
Yes, it was. And that's actually what started. I want to say with Parma Heights, it started in Cuyahoga County. The county planning department pays for technical assistance, and their planning department helps you write a comprehensive plan. So in Parma Heights, it started with a comprehensive plan that went into a Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative, or TLCI plan, for a major corridor, 42 Pearl Road, and that went into the actual wayfinding branding plan. So they had 3 planning documents that kind of held hands or dovetailed into one another. So I think that was key. And I mean, I am a planner, but I'm a huge fan of planning and then, implementing and getting the grants to pay for all of it.
And with Parma Heights, they're having a big ODOT project for the actual Pearl Road resurfacing. So part of that implementation will be the wayfinding will be included into the new resurfacing project. So it definitely works well.
And I just pulled up NOACA's website. They cover Cuyahoga, Geauga, Lake, Lorraine, and Medina counties. So if anyone's in those 5 counties, that would be your local MPO or Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Okay, do we have any other questions to come in? Type them away. I'm not seeing any movement on there. The recording and evaluation will be sent out to all of the registrants tomorrow. We look forward to having our next webinar in August, which will be on bikeable communities. Please watch the Heritage Ohio website for that and your emails. Thank you very much to both Lauren and Beth for this presentation. And if you need a copy of the PowerPoint, please give me an email at jbarrett@heritageohio.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Take care.
Thank you.